Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm going to share with you a slimline card that I made with the stencil set as well as the die set from this beautiful Pink Fresh Friendship Blooms set. I'm going to use the stencils first, and what I love about the layering stencils from Pink Fresh is they have register marks on all four corners, so that if your paper is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, all you have to do is line up those register marks and your stencil is going to be lined up every time. I've got 3 different shades of pink here that I'm using. I'm starting with my lightest shade because the first stencil has the biggest part of the flower in it. I'm just making sure to have a complete covering of the ink in the opening of the stencil. This flower has 2 more layers to go on top of it. So if after the 3rd layer I feel like I need a little bit more of this light pink, I can always go and match it and add some more ink to it. So I'm doing 2 pieces of paper at the same time so that I have twice the amount of flowers. I always like to have more than less. That way, if I have extras, I can always use them on future projects, but I just don't want to run out of elements that I want to use to create a card. And I did end up having a couple extras of these big flowers as well as some leaves, but like I said, I can add them to other cards and whatnot in the future. So I'm doing the second one here exactly the same way I did the first one, just putting a layer of the ink down. I want to make sure that I have complete coverage, and my intention with this is to add some glitter paste at the end. So these colors are going to start to bleed and migrate a little bit and soften a little bit into the different areas. So my first color was Spun Sugar, my second one here is Kitsch Flamingo, and my third one is going to be Picked Raspberry. I'll have all of the supplies that I'm using listed and linked down in the description below. So if there's anything that I don't happen to mention, you'll likely be able to find that information down below. If not, leave a comment and I'll answer your questions. I sometimes just forget to mention a few things. So with these stencils, I love how quick and easy it is to create images very easily. I don't have to do too much thinking. Like I said, there's the register marks in all 4 corners. So my papers are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I just have to line up those register marks and I'm good to go. For my greens here, my first light green is Bundled Sage. My next one is Peeled Paint. And I am trying to put a little bit darker color of the Bundled Sage down towards the base of the leaves, just to give it a little bit of natural shadow. With the second one, I don't need to do it quite as much. I still try to do it, but I don't need to do it quite as much because there's not as much open space as the full leaf area. The second one is exactly the same way as the first. Now for these flowers, I wanted to have them a little bit sparkly. So once I'm done with the leaves, I'm going to match up that first stencil again, and I'm going to put some glitter paste on there with a palette knife. I'm just adding a nice thin coat. It doesn't need to be very thick. The thicker your paste is, the longer it's going to take to dry. And then I'm going to let it dry completely before I go and die cut it. It's much easier to do it at this stage when your flowers and on the sheet are not die cut than it would be after it's totally die cut. So the stencil makes this really easy as well. I can line up those pieces perfectly and let them dry completely. Now after doing this, I decided that there was a little bit too much glitter for an entire card. So I ended up doing a second panel of each of these pieces and only putting glitter on the darkest pink. So here it is, I am doing the second one. The process is exactly the same as the first one, layering all the different ones in a row, but this time I put the 3rd layer stencil and only put my glitter paste there. That way I have that glitter that is going to tie in with the first ones, but it's not going to be too much or too all over. I'm going to die cut them in the exact same way as the first ones. I love that these have matching dies with them. It makes them very easy to cut out. Once I have all those pieces ready to go, I'm taking a piece of cardstock. This is 7 inches by 8 1/2 inches. I'm making a slimline card that is 3 1/2 inches by 8 1/2 inches. And my mat there is 3 1/4 inches by 8 1/4. I thought it would look really nice against a green background that coordinated with the leaves rather than a stark white. But you can choose whatever it is that you want your background to be. I just like the look of the white outline because it kind of brings in the white outline from my die cut flowers. Off screen, I laid my flowers out so I have an idea of exactly where I want them to go. I'm using some Distress Collage medium to place them. The nice thing about the Distress Collage medium is if I happen to move something and I get some glue exposed, that's going to dry completely clear and it's going to dry matte, so you're not going to be able to see it. It also gives me a little bit of wiggle room. I can lift flowers up and tuck leaves, tuck flowers, whatnot in there, so I don't have to be perfect the first time. I can just tuck and tweak as I'm going until I finish my final layout. Having my glue in a container where it's sitting with the tip down, make sure that glue is ready to go at any moment. Because I am lifting and layering as I'm going, I do sometimes tend to feel that the edges of my papers flip up a little bit. By putting an acrylic block once everything's in place, that's going to hold everything down to dry, and it's just going to free up my hands to do other things. I'm using all of the flowers that I created here. I do have a couple extras of the big ones when I'm done, and I also have some extra leaves. But once again, it's nice to have more than you need so that you don't have to stop and create some more leaves or create some more flowers while you're trying to create your card. Now, obviously, I did all of my flowers in tones of pinks, but you can use whatever colors you want to create your flowers. And you could even do several colors and have an arrangement with several different color of flowers and put them all together. Once I have my arrangement done, I'm just going to put my acrylic blocks on there, set them to the side. I have a really cute hello die that I'm going to use just to add a little sentiment to the bottom. I'm not really sure what this card is going to be sent out for, so hello makes it nice and simple and easy, but still puts a sentiment on there. This particular sentiment set that I'm using has 3 different choices there. There's thanks, there's hello, and celebrate. I thought hello was just the most generic. So I'm going to take some coordinating scrap papers and I'm going to cut each one out several times. I do the shadow 3 times and the hello twice in pink, and that way with the white outline and the pink sentiment, it'll coordinate really well with the white outline of my flowers and leaf die cut pieces, as well as the white outline on my card. Once again, as I'm gluing pieces together, I take my acrylic block and put them on top just to hold it in place. Sometimes with liquid glue, your paper starts to warp a little bit. It's not too bad with the Distress Collage medium, but just to avoid having that happen at all, putting an acrylic block or putting something heavy on top of it to hold it down keeps everything nice and flat. And by layering the different die cuts on top of each other, I get a nice sturdy sentiment to add to my card here. Again, I'm going to put the acrylic block on it, let that completely dry. Now, I didn't put anything over top of my sentiment, but you could take some stickles or some glossy accents and just add another texture to it. I found that there was enough glitter with the flowers that it didn't really need it. I did want to add some gems just to have a little sparkle there. So I'm using these really pretty iridescent gems that are going to play off the colors nicely. I could even have taken that glossy accents and just done dots of glossy accents to do dots around to have that little bit of dimension and whatnot. But the iridescent is really, really pretty with the pinks and greens of the flowers and leaves. I'm using the same Distress Collage medium to glue those on because it works well with non-porous surfaces as well. And I have a jewel pick that's going to help me hold those jewels and place them as I'm working. By putting them where I wanted them to go before gluing them down, I knew how it was going to look and I knew I was going to like it. So there is the final card and the final result. And I didn't do it with this card, but I could have also taken that stamp, lined them up with the flowers, and added that detail as well. Thank you so much for watching.